I'm going to show you a way to paint a super hot molten lava axe in a way that is 100% beginner friendly. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Norm, and in today's video you're going to see me doing something a little bit different, and that's going to be a painting tutorial. Now, the last few videos that you've seen on the channel have been some great painting tutorials from Dave, and I thought I'd have a crack at it. Now, if you wanted to skip straight to the painting tutorial, there are going to be some timestamps below, but if you're a beginner or you wanted to know how this video came about, I'd really recommend staying around for the next couple of minutes. So working alongside Dave is what inspired me to create some tutorials of my own, and my initial idea was to take a molten lava axe, practice until I'd mastered it, and then create a tutorial from that. But then that got me thinking, if you've practiced something that much that you've mastered it, is that then aimed at beginners? And I couldn't really answer that question, so I decided to put a little bit of a different spin on it, in that I'm going to record my first attempt, and if I'm happy with it, I'll turn that into a beginner's tutorial, because I think if I can do something that I'm happy with on my first attempt, then there's absolutely no reason why you can't. So I guess if you're seeing this video, it's because I was happy with that attempt, and I should probably now say let's crack on with painting, and I hope you enjoy the finished result. First up, this is the paint recipe for this axe. Ultimately, you're going to need a black, a white, a fluorescent orange, a red and a yellow, but these are the exact paints that I used in this video. I am starting with this axe primed in black, but we are going to need to paint the axe head white. This is to make the colours pop as best we can, and I'm just using my AK white and covering the axe head. Now, white doesn't have the best coverage, so you are going to need a few coats for this, and don't worry if it's a little bit rough at the end of this step. Next, you want to cover all of the axe head in your fluorescent orange. The first mix that I created was a little bit thin, which is why the coverage was so poor. However, once I thickened this back up, the next two coats gave me a really nice opaque finish. Now I want to introduce some hot spots into the axe head to replicate the hottest parts of the molten effect. I used the same white that we used in the original base coat mix, and I started to sketch in some hot spots. Again, don't worry if it's a little rough at the end of this stage, that's absolutely fine. I applied one coat, and then I went back in to push the hot spots a little closer to the edge of the axe, and to also give another coat to the centre of the hot spot, just to make sure that that is the part that has the most intensity. Next up, I mixed our yellow paint with the fluorescent orange, and I created a thick glaze. I'm going to use this to cover the hot spots that we've just created, and when I'm doing this stage, I make sure that my brush strokes always finish towards the edge of the axe, and this is going to leave the least amount of paint in the actual hot spot itself and pull the pigment towards the edge of the axe to help blend in that orange. If you think any of your transitions from yellow to orange look a little bit too extreme, then you can just use this glaze around the edge just to soften the transition and blend things in a little smoother. And I want to introduce some red tones into the axe, and to do this I mixed Mephiston red with the fluorescent orange, and I started to glaze this onto the edges of the axe to start to create some definition. It's better to try and build things up slowly to get a smoother transition from the yellow to red, so you'll probably find yourself going over the same parts a few times until you're happy with the contrast. I then pushed this a little bit further using pure Mephiston red and the same method, and I tried to work towards the sharpest edges of the axe. I also picked out a few small details on the axe head to create a little bit of visual interest. However, if you're painting a smooth blade, you're probably not going to do this. Next up, I mixed our black paint into the Mephiston red, and I used this mix to create even more contrast on the edges of the axe. This paint consistency was slightly thicker than what I have been using, as I didn't want it to pool or flow into any of the recesses that this axe head has. I simply want to use it to pick out some of the definition and the harshest edges of the axe. Don't worry if it looks quite rough, as we're going to push this even further with pure black later in the video. Once I was happy with how the edges of the axe were starting to look, I decided to reintroduce some of our hotspots. I didn't paint them in quite as large as we did in the beginning, so I was mostly aiming for the centre of the axe head. When I first started this stage, my paint was slightly too thin, so if you are doing this, don't forget to wick that paint off onto a paper towel, as it's just going to give you much more control when you put the brush to the mini. Once I'd repainted the hotspots, I then heavily thinned down our yellow paint, and I went over those hotspots and just gave them a nice yellow tint so that the white paint wasn't too harsh. Using pure black, I then created even more contrast by following around the edges of the axe head and on the corners. And in this stage we're looking to simulate the coldest parts of the Molten effect, which is what the black is. This step really is personal preference on how far you push it. Some people like to introduce a lot of black at this stage, but play around with it and see what you prefer. Originally, I had planned to stop at around this stage, but I did get a little bit of feedback and I slept on it, and I decided to come back in with even more black and push it a little bit further, and I'm glad I did, because I think this looks much better than it did one step ago. And this is it, the finished product. It probably took me around 45 minutes to paint this in between recording. I could have probably done it slightly faster, but to be honest with you, as a first attempt and in that amount of time, I'm really happy with that result. So there you have it, a really simple way to paint a nice looking enchanted weapon. Is it going to give you a golden demon? Absolutely not, but it is going to look great on the tabletop or on a personal display piece. And don't forget, you can take all the elements that you've used to paint this axe and you can refine them and push them even further if you want to get something that you can use on a real display piece. But I appreciate that beginners don't necessarily want to spend 2, 3, 4 hours painting such a small element on a miniature. So what do you think? Was it worth a video? Do you like the end result? And will you be trying to replicate it yourself? Let me know in the comments. You can also let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see me do in this format, anything you'd like me to try for the first time. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, but for now, I'll catch you in the next one.